So my number two, to bridge the Reese Witherspoon filmography gap, is 1999's Election, directed by Alexander Payne, starring Matthew Broderick, Reese Witherspoon, as we just talked about, and Chris Klein. The plot of this film is a high school teacher meets his match in an overachieving student politician. So for me, I think this movie, which I saw when I was in high school, I saw when it came out, it really captures, I think, this feeling that you do sometimes have in high school where everything is like life or death important. Everything is heightened here. Stakes are incredibly high, and you care so much about everything that gets done. Even though in actuality, like, it's completely meaningless. I mean, there's nothing more unimportant in a way than the things that happen to you in high school. Like, I mean, yeah, there can be some big things, but it's not, compared to the rest of your life, I think those can be over heightened, especially at the time. So what this movie does is it uses the prism of a school presidential election to show how much drama and, again, self-seriousness of some of the students and really, like, quote unquote politics, right? They're involved in the high school experience. I think this movie does, speaking of clicks, again, like I mentioned, PCU does a great job with the narrative structure of having sort of several characters giving voiceovers. You really get to see into all the different types of stereotypes or personas, I guess, that you find in high school. You know, there's the overachiever who Reese Witherspoon plays, Tracy Flick, and, you know, for her, everything is the most important thing ever that can happen in high school, because that's some step that you're going to, one more step closer to some goal that you have when you're like 45, and this is my life that I want, and I'm sort of building towards that, and every misstep I make in high school could ruin that dream. So there definitely were people like that. You know, I was surrounded by a lot of those in my high school experience, for sure, where everything was life or death. There's Chris Klein, who's first on-screen role. He was found for this film by Alexander Payne. Fantastic performance of just like this, you know, dumb but harmless jock character, who sort of gets the drift for life, and nothing, he never really has to try at anything. He just gets given it because he's popular and nice. You know, he's nice. He's not a bad guy, and good looking. There were definitely a lot of folks like that in high school that I met. And then his adopted sister, you know, she's sort of this rebel who has a nihilistic attitude of like, oh, everything sucks, I hate everything. And that's definitely something as a teenager you feel at various points. And there were definitely people in my high school that were represented that. So I think what this movie does is not only shows those characters, but gives you empathy to all of them, because you're hearing from their own narration and internal thoughts. You're understanding, oh, okay, well, you know, Chris Klein's just actually kind of oblivious to these things. He's not a bad guy. Or, okay, Tracy might be crazy and, you know, might take things a little bit too far, but you understand where she's coming from emotionally. So it puts you in the mindsets of all these different people, where in high school, you're so self-centered. All you're thinking about is yourself. You might, you know, look at the overachiever and be like, oh, like, this teacher's pet, blah, blah, blah. What does this person actually try? Like, they're so annoying. They're doing this. But you really get to understand where these people are coming from in this film, which I think is just a brilliant, like, narrative device. And just a testament to the actors too, of really like living in these characters. You do feel like they're totally, totally real. And I think, you know, again, the casting here is so realistic. The school setting is real. There's a verisimilitude of just, it feels like you're back in high school, in a classic sense. So, you know, I think, again, testament to Alexander Payne for casting real high school students like Chris Klein. And then all the background actors are mainly just like kids. They're not actual actors. I also think, you know, the staff, Matthew Broderick, I'm not going to talk about him too much in this analysis here, but he does a fantastic job.
He's great.
I think his best actually on-screen performance, and a lot of the interesting things. There's so much going on in this movie, but I'm focusing on the academic side just for the sake of the theme for the episode. But I definitely want to shout him out. But I also feel that the other administrator, especially the principal, is just so accurate in terms of how principals act. This is the scene where they're giving all the speeches of who wants to run for high school president, and the audience is kind of like, you know, making fun of the speeches, and, you know, the principal gets up and says, hey, you know, if you guys can't act like adults, then we're going to treat you like children, because that's what you are. You are children. And like, that thing was said so many times in high school by teachers, or like, you know, because you're still kids, but you're trying to act kind of like adults sometimes. They're trying to treat you like adults. So that line too, I was like, this is so real. It's like ripped from, you know, my high school experience. So again, I think what this movie really captures is all the different social cliques, but getting you to understand where these people are coming from, and understand more than even I did in high school in running into these different types of personas that is just still just it's a masterwork of a film and one of my favorite films of all time. And maybe it just hit me at the right time. Like I was a senior in high school when I saw it when it came out. But yeah, Election just had to include it on the list. And another fantastic Reese Witherspoon performance. I mean, again, I think it's her best actually. But going from this and Legally Blonde to like a year or two later, it just shows her range as well as an actress.
Pretty amazing.
And she's phenomenal. But I mean, Tracy Flick. I mean, what a character and what a performance she gives here.
Totally indelible. Yeah, this is, I think, a masterclass in filmmaking. In fact, the film class that I took in LA, this is the movie that they made us watch.
Oh,
I had
cool.
not seen the movie before. And we studied a bunch of scenes, and because there's so much happening from like a filmmaking standpoint to, like you said, really sort of amp up the drama and the tension and the stakes. And once you start watching this movie, there's no way your head or your body can leave
right
where you're at. It's just so captivating, and you're with these people, you're empathizing, you're scared for them, you're angry about them, all of it. Like, and it's performance, of course, but it's also filmmaking in every aspect just at play. So yeah, great movie. To what you were saying earlier about the stakes are so high, I think that rings so true for me as well. Like whatever stuff you're into just feels like a matter of life and death.
Right.
When you're doing it. And everything you said about the empathy part, I wish I had watched this movie earlier. In fact, I feel like this movie should be like mandatory viewing for kids to have more empathy, and even adults for that matter, because we encounter people who are precocious and just sort of the cheerleader kind energy, which sometimes can be kind of annoying. But I think when you really peel the layers behind who this person is and get to know them for real, of course you'll connect with them, and of course you'll find something to empathize with. So yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, at the same time, I don't want to give Tracy Flick too much, credit either. Like I definitely would have, like Matthew Broderick, there is something you kind of hate about those people too.
Yeah.
And that even though you understand where she's coming from and all that she's accomplished, but there's something that's still just like, so I definitely would have at the end. Like I love that scene where he throws the milkshake at the car when he's just so angry that like she got what she wanted. And it didn't really like, matter how she got there. And yeah, she stepped on some people and stuff, but I just think that character is just so well captured. And it is tough. Like you empathize with her, but at the same time, you still are mad at her too.
Still are mad at them.
Yeah.
But this is classic Alexander Payne, I think.
Yes,
I think
true.
He's one of the masters at capturing such people who are essentially real people, right? People who are in the grave, which is practically everybody, that you root for them, but you also despise them on a certain spectrum, no matter what that might be. So yeah, he's brilliant at that.
Yeah, totally. Good shout out to him. I think maybe this is the first movie I think we brought up on the podcast so far from him, who's one of my favorite directors. So
probably. Yeah.
Cool. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.